Today I want to talk about anger as a tool of resistance. Anger is like a bell ringing in your soul. It's loud and it interrupts whatever else is going on. Anger can be a sign that something is wrong. It's a warning bell. There is hurt, harm, damage, sometimes to you, sometimes to something or someone you love. Used well, anger can be a tool of resistance, a refusal to accept the unacceptable. It clears the air, resets the moment. But anger is tricky. It doesn't always surface at the appropriate moment. The situation that creates the anger response in the first place may not be the actual cause of the alarm. So we have to pay attention, to stop and notice what the anger is really about. Especially because we live in a society where anger is not an acceptable emotion. You can be excited and happy and passionate and sad for most of the part, but you can't be angry, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a person of color. And this is deeply ingrained. Anger is seen as a loss of control, and even if the anger is justified, the angry person somehow loses the right to be angry as soon as they express it. We would listen to them, if only they weren't so angry. But anger matters. It's telling you something is wrong. Because ultimately anger is a defense. It's a way of covering up the hurt and the pain that you feel underneath, the way a cat might hiss when it's cornered. Anger reminds us that something we value has been injured. It reminds us that we matter, that what we love matters, that what we value matter, that we care, and it makes us vulnerable. And so we use our anger wisely to fuel our fight to protect what matters to us, to resist that which hurts us. Greta Thunberg has not become the leader of the youth climate action movement because she smiles and asks political leaders nicely to change. Greta is angry. She is frustrated and furious and passionate, and she says so clearly and loudly every chance she gets. Follow the science, she says. We have tools for a climate response. What we don't have is political will. Greta is a ringing bell calling to all of us. Her anger and despair and frustration led her to that climate crisis school strike. She channeled her anger into action. And her father has noted that Greta struggled with despair before taking action, but that the power of being engaged, of having her voice heard, of having an impact, has lifted her spirits. To resist, to act is empowering. Taking action reminds us that we have the power to protect ourselves and to influence change. Greta has used her anger well, and she has shifted the global conversation on climate action. And it isn't just Greta, of course, but young people from all around the planet, each voice adding weight. Anger has power we can use to fuel action. And here in this room, there are people from all walks of life who are all in different stages, have different experiences all across the political spectrum. But I suspect we can each find something going on in the world right now that makes us angry. It might be the climate crisis, or the exclusion of trans people, or poverty, or sexual abuse. There is something that injures our soul and setting our warning bells ringing. So I ask you to pay attention, because it's not always that loud clanging. It might be an irritating beep, 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 or a soft occasional boom. But listen to your warning bells and find its meaning for you. Anger isn't sustainable in the long term, but it's a starting point for action to help move you from hurt and despair into help. Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, a psychologist, reminds us of our power. She says, "We are needed That is all we can know. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small thing that one soul can do to help another soul, to assist some portion of the poor, suffering world, will help immensely. It's not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. What is needed for dramatic change is an accumulation of acts, adding to, adding more, continuing. We know that it does not take everyone on earth to bring justice and peace, but only a small, determined group who will not give up during the first, second, or 100th storm. We are needed. That is all we can know. Use your anger wisely. Understand it. Use it to resist what damages your soul. Use your anger as a fuel to act for change, to reach out to others, to take whatever small action you can take. All Greta did was get mad and sit with a sign. And she isn't the only one. More join her each day. We are needed. Well, some acts of resistance, like school strikes for the climate crisis, take on global issues. Small local acts also make a difference. A few years ago in Manchester, England, a property developer decided to put strips of little metal spikes all along a swath of pavement outside one of its downtown buildings. And this happened to be a warmer, sort of sheltered area, and it had become a place for homeless people to sleep at night. Manchester City Council condemned the act, saying that the spikes demeaned those in need, rough sleepers as they're called in England, who had been gravely impacted by the loss of social services there. And they asked that businesses work with City Council to find ways to help people rather than dehumanize them. The one person decided there was no reason to wait for City Council to intervene. Jenny Platt felt the spikes were so mean and cruel, she simply went and covered them with a pile of cushions and pillows. She and her family and friends bought dozens of sandwiches and invited people who slept there to return. And this garnered media attention, and there was a public outcry, and the company removed the spikes. One woman just simply resisted a choice that she deemed cruel and unnecessary. It was a small, straightforward act of resistance. Cover up some spikes in the pavement with colorful cushions. But it mattered. This act of resistance was also an act of kindness because it told people who were struggling that they mattered. She offered compassion. Now, it didn't resolve the rise in rough sleepers, but she helped to begin a bigger public conversation about homelessness in Manchester. And change happens through that accumulation of many small acts. I sometimes think we're living in a system that is becoming too big to control, even for those who govern and those with most of the money. With the weight of the incredibly complex policies and laws, the enormous infrastructure that surrounds us, financial costs that seem to spiral higher with every passing moment, I think effecting serious, long-lasting change is difficult even for those in power. How do you shift a mammoth determined on its course? I don't think there's a single solution. You might use poles to prod and push. You might reshape their path with rocks and barriers. You might even stand in the way and try and slow that beast down. But in the end, it will take multiple strategies and multiple people to shift a mammoth in towards a new direction. And I think as Unitarian Universalists, even those of us who don't identify as activists or feel firmly part of the status quo, I think in the end, each one of us acts to improve the world. Because being Unitarian Universalist itself is an act of resistance. To choose religion in a time when religion is an unpopular scapegoat is a brave choice. And we come here to engage in what it means to be fully human, to explore what it means to be entangled in that holy web of life, to struggle with the deeper questions of meaning in shifting times is vital and necessary. And I believe that most of us Most people want the world to be a good place to live, to minimize pain and suffering, and to live well and in peace. And I think if we take this desire seriously and try and live it out, then each of us in our own way becomes an activist for good. As people of the chalice, I think we try in ways large and small to make life better, and we fail as often as we succeed, and we make mistakes, and we hurt people, and we mess up, but we keep trying to shift society and ourselves towards caring inclusion, towards healing the planet. And I don't think we always even see how much it is that we do. To act is to be an activist, and I encourage all of you to claim this label and let it empower you.